Good morning, friend. Welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky. If you're new, today is going to be a very relaxing day in the kitchen. Today is Christmas Adam, which we always refer in my family the day before Christmas Eve as Christmas Adam. And we have some fun cooking today for my family, and then for tomorrow we're going to prep a couple things so that I can take cinnamon rolls over to Josh's dad's house for his Christmas. So we've already had 2 Christmases. My family's with Josh's mom, and then tomorrow we are going to celebrate Christmas Eve with Josh's dad. And I always bring cinnamon rolls over there, and we're going to prep to make 2 different kind of cinnamon rolls to bring over there. So that's going to be fun. So we're going to prep the dough and the fillings today, and then tomorrow morning I'll get up early, roll everything out, and bake them. And then for my family, I'm going out to dinner with a girlfriend tonight to a new restaurant in Portland, and I'm super excited about it. And Josh, I was asking him what he wanted for dinner tonight, and he said he wanted something with pasta that was hearty because we've had a lot of meat and potato type dinners recently, and so he wanted something with pasta. So I printed off creamy sausage and peppers in the slow cooker so I can get that going now, and it'll be ready for them tonight for dinner. And then I also want to go ahead and prep a quiche because we haven't had any breakfast meal prep in the kitchen for a while, so I want to get that done today. So I'm gonna put a couple things on my grocery list because I need to go around my pantry in the basement and my freezer up here to get a couple things so that we can do all this cooking. I didn't need to go to the store for any of this stuff. I already had everything I think I needed for today's cooking day. So I need butter, cheese, onions, caramelized, peppers, and milk. Let's see, I think that is everything. Oh, marinara sauce, pasta, and now garlic. And now I think I have everything. So I'm gonna bring my list and my recipes with me to go do some shopping. I will link these recipes down below for you. The recipe that we're using for the dough for the cinnamon rolls is the Pioneer Woman's recipe, and it is my absolute favorite. We're gonna do a traditional cinnamon roll, and then we're gonna make an almond cinnamon roll as well. I need to turn a light on in the garage so that I can see what I'm doing. All right, so this is what the freezer is looking like right now. You can see the only freezer meals I have in here right now are some marinated meats, which we're working on going through so that we can do a big freezer cooking day here coming up. So I'm gonna grab some butter. I want a good quality butter for my filling. I need peppers for tonight's dinner, and I need some caramelized onions for our quiche. And I think that's everything I need out of this freezer. Oh, onions. I don't feel like, nope, we're using the caramelized onions, so I don't need to saute those. Actually, I need onions for tonight's dinner for Josh. So I'm gonna get those. So I'm gonna do some shortcuts for myself and use some pre-diced onions from the garden and some onions that are pre-diced from the garden as well. I buy my cheese in bulk when I can get it on sale from Azure. So I'm gonna grab 2 of those because we're gonna need those. And I buy my milk from a local creamery. So I'm gonna grab this for all of this cooking we're doing. As I'm looking in this freezer, I see a bunch of bags of tomatoes and tomatillos that need to be dealt with. So maybe next week after Christmas, we will be making some tomato fun things and some tomatillo fun things. I decided to grab a different brand of butter just because it was in my refrigerator and it's not frozen as opposed to the stuff in my freezer. Now I've got all my things out here. I think I'm gonna need to grab some sort of basket to go shopping downstairs. And where did I put my recipes? I think I left them on the freezer. I did. Okay. So now we need to go downstairs and grab things from downstairs. I don't think I have any baskets. Oh, here's a bag. I could put goodies in here if I need to. Let's turn some lights on. I need a head of garlic, a pound of pasta, a jar of homemade, home-canned, homegrown marinara sauce. Super, super proud of that. And then in here, I need to grab, oh, while I'm down here, I'm gonna grab a couple things for a Christmas gift. So the friend that I'm meeting, we don't usually do big gifts or anything, but I like to just put together a little bag for her from homegrown, homemade goodies. So now I need some sausage. I can just move this over. And I need Italian sausage. And I want them in links. I don't really want the bulk stuff that I get from a local farm, just because this dinner works better with links, and I happen to have this in here. Also, I need to grab one of these lasagnas because I have a friend that I want to gift one of these lasagnas to. And while I'm in town, I'll probably grab that a little bit later. I'll need to set a reminder for myself. I will drop that off to a friend on my way to dinner tonight. Okay, garlic, sausage, marinara sauce. I did bring my list down here. But what I'm gonna grab for my friend for a gift is not on my list. I think I'm gonna give her some strawberry jam, and she loves hot sauce. So we both like spicy food. I'm gonna give her one of these ones. I'm gonna give her more than one. And that's why I like to can hot sauce in smaller jars so I can put together little gifts. So we're gonna do that. And maybe, should we do a cowboy candy too? We'll do there's a little homegrown gift. I just need to grab a gift bag. I don't know about you, but I keep all gift bags I get, and I like to save tissue paper that I get as well. Even bags, if I go to the store or like to a craft fair and I buy something and they give me one of these paper ones, I like to keep these too. So I know that because we had a Christmas, I'm not seeing any Christmas color tissue paper in here. We had a Christmas last night at my mother-in-law's house. I saved all the tissue paper from our stockings. So I'm gonna use some of that with this for the gift. Put this here. I will also put rings around those jars because not everyone that I love in my life are canners. So most people that I know that I gift things like this to don't have rings. Because I don't store my canned goods with rings on them, I always like to make sure I gift rings so when they open those and put them in their fridge, they have rings on them. I'm gonna use this bag to carry everything else up too. As soon as the holiday season is over, we are gonna get to all these goodies. We just need to get through the holiday season first. We've got to process pumpkins, process the wheat, process all these beans that I have everywhere. And look at these zucchinis, my friend. We harvested these zucchinis back in, what was it? I think September. And they have no signs of molding or anything like that. They're still rock hard. And I've given my chickens a couple of them. I cut them in half and they absolutely devour them. So now that we got all our goodies, let's head upstairs and actually start some cooking. So here's all of our loot. I'm gonna get this under some cold water. I don't want to defrost these. I just need this so that I can get the plastic off. That'll only take a second for that to thaw, but what I wanna get going on now is actually starting our dough for our cinnamon rolls. I have a big pot here, and we actually need to heat up our milk and dissolve our sugar. I was gonna use this milk, but I ran out of milk last week, so I had to buy some milk, and I wanna use this up first because I know it needs to be used up first. I wanna get going on this because we're supposed to heat the milk, dissolve the sugar, and then we have to cool. Oh my goodness, my friend. We have to cool this before we can add our yeast or we'll kill our yeast. And I just realized I used all my yeast yesterday for rolls. I made rolls and brought them over to my mother-in-law's house and I used all my yeast. So what that means is I'm gonna call my neighbor, ask her if she has yeast. If she doesn't, then Josh is running to the store for me, which means this will have plenty of time to cool. Okay, so that was 1 cup of sugar going in there, and that's all. I'm gonna heat that till it dissolves. My neighbor is saving the day. Josh is gonna go run down to their house, pick up some yeast. So nice having neighbors that can help you out in these situations because it does take quite a bit of time to get into town and get back. And she knows that at any time if she needs anything from me, she's more than welcome to whatever I have. So that is going. Now, what I think I want to get going on next is the quiche because I already have the oven preheated and this is going to come together really, really quickly. I went ahead and grabbed my slow cooker out because we are going to need this for tonight's dinner. I grabbed my pie plate out and I am so excited to have quiche because I have not made it in a long time and we love it. I kind of go through phases where I make a lot of it and then we get tired of it and then I don't make it. And now we're on the track of making it again. And I love when I don't have to make the pastry. Today we're gonna have a bacon and onion quiche with caramelized onions, and it's gonna be delicious. I think this is the equivalent of about 2 pie crusts or like 1 1/3. So I think I'm gonna cut part of this off because I don't think I need quite this much crust. I'm just gonna take my pastry or my bench scraper. So I had this in the freezer after I made it. And then last night, knowing I was gonna make this today, I just popped it in the fridge so that it could not be frozen and I could actually roll it out. Hey, would you be willing to run down to the neighbor's house to grab some yeast? She is all ready for you. I didn't realize that I used, well, I did realize, but I forgot that I used all my yeast yesterday when I made those rolls.
Okay, no problem.
Awesome, thank you.
Bye.
So I'm just gonna add the rest of this pie crust that I'm cutting off to my rectangle. And I'm gonna throw that back in the freezer. And next time I need some pie crust, I've got it right here. This was the parchment paper I had it in. Just gonna wrap it back up. I'm gonna roll this together in the parchment paper because I had those random scraps, and this will kind of smash them back together. So when I go to roll this out next time I need it, they won't be all separated. I'm gonna pop this in the fridge while we make the filling. I'm just running a little bit more cold water over top of our sausages. And again, I'm not thawing those, I'm just getting them so that I can get them out of the package. Okay, here's our bowl. Let me get out all the things we need to make this filling. I need to shred some cheese, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that first so I can just shred it right into my bowl that we're gonna make this in. I grabbed 2 blocks out, but I do not think I will need 2 blocks. I need 2 cups, which probably one of these blocks is plenty. My 2 favorite things to keep in my freezer, or 2 of my favorite things to keep in my freezer, is pre-cooked bacon and homemade caramelized onions. So now I'm gonna put bacon, cheese, caramelized onions. So those are kind of like our main flavor components of our quiche. Now we're gonna build our building blocks of our quiche, which is 8 eggs. My girls are on winter break right now. And I don't think they're gonna be laying much anytime soon because they are gonna be 5 next year. So we are gonna be getting some new chickens this spring. 2, 4, 6, 7, 1 more. Now the recipe calls for half and half, but I don't have that, but I have cream and I have milk. So if I mix those together, that will give me half and half. If you wanna use just milk, you can do that. If you wanna use just cream, you can do that as well. And of course, a lot of black pepper. Okay, this is well mixed, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my pie pan. This is a deep dish pie pan, and I'm also gonna go ahead and put it on a cookie sheet with foil. Just in case it boils over. Quiche is one of those things you can put whatever you want into it. I usually use that base of 8 eggs, some kind of cheese, about 1.5 cups of dairy, and then whatever veggies or proteins you want to put into it. That is gonna take a good hour or so to cook. This is still pretty warm. It is about 44 degrees outside. I'm gonna put the lid on this, pop this outside for a couple minutes so that it can cool, because it's still way too warm to put the rest of our ingredients in, or our yeast at the very least. So while that is cooling outside and our quiche is cooking away, let's go ahead and get tonight's dinner made for my family. And I can take a second to clean up my mess here. I'm gonna get all these goodie dishes in the dishwasher. Some of them I need to rinse a little bit before I put in. Tell me, are you the one that makes sure the dishes look clean before they go into the dishwasher? Or are you the one that just puts them in the dishwasher? I feel like there's always two people that find each other that are on the opposite ends of that spectrum, and then they get married. But I could be wrong on that. To be honest, I'm usually the one that's not the best about rinsing the dishes. Let's go ahead and make dinner. So
This should work.
Josh just dropped off from my neighbor a bunch of yeast. It expired almost a year ago, but one of them has been left in her freezer. So what we're gonna do before I use this to make our Christmas cinnamon rolls is I'm just going to grab some water, put some yeast in there, mix it up. We're gonna let this sit for 10 minutes and see what happens. If this looks like it's dead, Josh, would you be willing to run to the store for me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Josh will go pick up fresh yeast. This looks like it's already starting to foam up, so I think it's gonna be okay.
Nice.
Which is gonna,
Curious on that one if it would.
yeah, I can test that one too. Because this one was kept in the freezer. Another one she gave me was not kept in the freezer. So normally when I make this, I use raw sausage links. These are pre-cooked, and normally I wait to slice them until after they're cooked, just because they're easier to do that. But because these are pre-cooked ones, I'm gonna go ahead and slice them now. They are still kind of frozen, which actually should make them a little bit easier to cut. And I'm just gonna cut these into rounds. This is a very forgiving recipe. It's really just a dump and go slow cooker recipe, and it's so good.
What are you making?
I am making the creamy sausage and onion pasta sauce.
Nice.
The one with red sauce and cream and Parmesan cheese. So the only thing you're gonna have to do, well, I probably will just add it before I go. So you won't have to do anything except make yourself some noodles.
Nice. Sounds good.
I'm throwing sausage on the floor. So I'm gonna get this in my slow cooker first. So I currently don't have any, oh, I do have garlic powder. My mom got me some in my stocking. I almost forgot about that. I did forget about that, I should say. But I should probably peel and use this garlic first. After the new year, I'm gonna go through, and maybe Josh, you'd wanna help me peel all the garlic that we have downstairs so I can.
Oh yeah, that's a project.
Yeah, it's a project. The nice thing is the cloves are really big, so it's not like super tedious, but it'll be a project for sure. We have lots of projects we're gonna tackle after the holidays. If you missed it, Josh bought 2 shellers for the black beans. He set them up, but we have not used them yet. We wanna use them for the first time with you. We just haven't had the time yet to do that, so we are both very much looking forward to that.
Hopefully they work.
So when I use raw sausage, I put that at the bottom, and then once it's done cooking, I just take some kitchen shears and I dice it into rounds, but because this is already cooked, I just went ahead and did that now. So now I'm gonna get in some onions. Normally when I make this, I use sliced, but these are diced, and that'll be just fine. Get those in here. Peppers. Get those in here. 1 jar of marinara sauce, whatever is your favorite. And I don't wanna add any water to this to get the rest of that out because I used frozen onions and peppers. So they're gonna release a lot of moisture. So I'm just gonna take my spatula and scrape out all of the goodness out of this jar. Put the lid on here. I'm gonna set this aside because we have one more ingredient that I wanna prep, and that's the cream. I'm not gonna add this in there yet. I'll add this a little bit closer to when it's done. but because I'm using the frozen peppers and onions, I'm actually gonna put a little bit of starch in here to thicken the sauce up so that it's not too runny. I'm just gonna pop this little container of cream and starch back in the fridge, and then once we're ready to add it, I'll just pour it into the slow cooker. This is not in the original recipe. This is just because I'm using frozen vegetables. And then I'll also have Josh, or I will, depending on what time I leave and when they're hungry, add Parmesan cheese to this. I'm gonna put this on low because it's early in the day, and so that can just sit on low for a long time. I'm gonna clean my mess up now. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have Josh run to the store. It's just not as bubbly as I would like to see. It's probably okay, but I don't want to put all of my flour and everything into my milk mixture and then lose it all. So it's worth just going to the store and picking up a little bit of new stuff. So this is what it's looking like. And I don't know, maybe it's fine, but I don't want to risk it for Christmas cinnamon rolls. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my mess, and then I'm gonna wrap my presents while I wait for Josh to get the yeast. And I just realized, since Josh opened the other jar that I grabbed earlier, I only have one more jar of this downstairs after gifting the strawberry jam, which is our favorite. Luckily, I do have some strawberry jam in my freezer, but we are not probably gonna make it until next year. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna force us, I grabbed a blueberry jam up, which is delicious. It's not our favorite, so it'll force us to use those if we run out, which we probably will. So this is just some tissue that came in my stocking yesterday. Just gonna reuse it. Oh, I almost forgot. Rings. So this is now ready to go. I'm gonna set this here for now so I don't forget it. I'm also right next to it, I need to grab a pen. The friend that I wanna drop a lasagna off to, I don't wanna forget the lasagna. And I need to keep it down there because that's where it is, stay in the freezer basically until I drop it off. And so I'm gonna put this right here so I don't forget. A couple explanation points too. What should we do now while we wait for Josh? I could certainly clean up my mess. It's amazing to me how quickly messes can accumulate. Ooh, I can smell the quiche. I think I'm gonna put a piece of foil on the top so it doesn't get too brown before the inside sets, because that looks very, very wiggly still. Perfect timing. Josh just got back with some yeast for me.
It was a madhouse.
He's saving the day. He said the store was a madhouse. It is, again, the day before Christmas Eve. Probably a lot of people took today off and are enjoying getting ready. Would you be willing to hand me those, just the recipes? Thank you. Getting ready for the holiday. And I don't have that much prep I have to do for this holiday. All that I have to do are the cinnamon rolls. We already made the banquette, which I'll show you. That's in the freezer. The quiche is just for us to eat. The slow cooker is just for us to eat. And I think on Christmas, Josh, did we decide we're gonna pick up Chinese?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've kind of made that a tradition because I cook a lot. It's nice not to have to cook, and this will be our third Christmas, with family. So it's kind of a relaxing way for us to spend Christmas, is to get some good takeout and enjoy just a quiet family day. So I am gonna go ahead and weigh this out because the recipe calls for packets of yeast, and I actually do prefer this because it's a cheaper way to buy yeast, but I do want to go ahead and weigh it out. Okay, right there. I put this back on the stove because it was actually cold from being outside, and I do want it about 100 degrees. So I'm just going to take its temperature real quick. This dough is a very, very soft and pillowy dough. It's not dry. Some cinnamon roll recipes tend to be a little on the dry side. This one is not, I think because it has so much sugar, milk, and oil in it. We do need to put 1 cup of oil in this. And I just use avocado oil. I've also used butter. I think I usually use butter, not oil. I'm gonna use oil this time. I'm gonna make my dough in this bowl. This makes a lot of cinnamon rolls. And we're gonna have this dough cool overnight. The cool thing about this recipe is you can make this dough in advance, and that's what I'm doing today because I don't wanna get up and have to make the dough tomorrow. So I'm making it today. So now I'm sprinkling over my yeast. I'm just gonna stir this together a little bit. The first time I ever made this recipe was just on a random, I don't know if it was a weekday or what, but cinnamon rolls sounded good. It was a winter day, and I made this recipe. And it wasn't until this point, that's 2, 3, 8, when I was adding 8 cups of flour, and we're still gonna add more, that I realized, oh my goodness, that is a lot of cinnamon rolls. How many are we making? And it was just Josh and I at home, and there was no way we were gonna be able to go through all this. So I made up the whole recipe because I was already this far deep into it. And then I called a bunch of family and friends. Luckily I had some foil tins, and I was able to say, hey, come pick up some cinnamon rolls because I made more than we could go through. Okay, so all we have to do now is mix. You don't need a mixer for this recipe. It's so easy. We're just gonna mix our flour and our yeast and our milk and our oil and our sugar together. I'm pretty sure, I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure I used to make this with butter. But we're doing oil this time. Cover this, and while this is resting, we're going to go ahead and get our quiche out of the oven because that's gonna sit for 1 hour. And then we're also gonna make our almond paste filling for our almond rolls. I guess I wanna call them almond cinnamon rolls, but we're not gonna add any cinnamon, so technically they would be like an almond roll. And this is something I'm just kind of making up. So we'll see how it turns out. Look at that. I'm gonna go ahead and make not only the almond paste today, but this has gone by a lot quicker than I was expecting. I was going back and forth whether I was gonna make the frosting or not today, but I think I'm going to, and I'm just gonna put it in a Ziploc bag and it will be ready. And then when I go to frost the cinnamon rolls, I'll cut the end off and I'll be able to pipe it onto the cinnamon rolls. At least that's what I'm thinking for now. But first, in the food processor, we're gonna go ahead and make our almond filling. So the first thing I'm gonna add to make our almond filling is almond flour, eggs, egg whites. I'll give these yolks to my dogs. They will greatly enjoy them. White sugar. Normally I would add powdered sugar to this as well, but I think I'm just gonna add white sugar because I don't want it to be as dry. So this looks like a pretty good consistency. Tomorrow, I am going to also add butter on top. Or should I add the butter in it now? No, what I'm gonna do tomorrow is I am going to melt butter And then I am going to add this into melted butter, mix that together so it's softer, because right now this is pretty firm. And then we will put this in our rolls and see how it turns out. So I need to get this into a little container. This filling right here is basically the filling if you've ever had an almond croissant and there's that almond paste on the inside, this is it. You can buy almond paste and add eggs and sugar to it. When I was looking at a lot of recipes, that's what they say. This is just making it homemade with almond flour. Almond paste in my area is very expensive and it doesn't taste as fresh because it's shelf stable. This is not shelf stable. This has to go into my fridge. Oh, you know what I almost forgot? One of the most important ingredients. I'm gonna add 3/4 teaspoon of almond extract and a healthy splash or 2 of vanilla. One less thing I'll need to do tomorrow morning, so that's good. So I've got my food processor attachments all in the dishwasher. I can put this away. More than having to do it is I kind of wanted to have less mess tomorrow. It's already enough mess to have to roll everything out and assemble cinnamon rolls because they can be kind of a messy thing to make. And so if I can get some of the dishes that I'm going to be making out of the way, I would appreciate that. My future self will appreciate that. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to go ahead and get the cream cheese frosting made up. I did look up some recipes on how to make an actual, like a recipe that is a cinnamon, or not a cinnamon, I keep wanting to say that, an almond roll. But there wasn't one that I was like, yeah, I think that's the one I want to do. So that's why I'm just kind of making it up. And here, I'm just going to do a classic cream cheese frosting. The cream cheese has been sitting out at room temperature since this morning. I'm going to get this in my KitchenAid attachment, or in my KitchenAid. I think I need to make a double batch for this. The recipes, though, that I did see for almond rolls did call for a cream cheese frosting. So I'm just gonna make one frosting for all of the cinnamon rolls, or the rolls. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this right into this Ziploc bag. I like the consistency of this frosting, not too stiff. I've never thought to do this before, of putting the frosting in a Ziploc bag before, to just easily pipe it on. And this way it's not gonna dry out in the fridge, and I will have this come up to room temperature before I frost the cake. Or not cake, frost the cinnamon rolls. That should be plenty of frosting. And now this can be washed, and I don't have to worry about washing that tomorrow. Get the air out. I'm not gonna make the filling or anything like that for the cinnamon rolls today, because for the filling, well, the cinnamon roll filling, all I do is melt butter, put brown sugar and cinnamon on it. So that's all I need to do. So I'm not gonna worry about doing that today. What I am going to do is get these dishes in the dishwasher and get my appliances clean and put away. So let me show you, because I used the frozen peppers and onions, you can see how there's a little bit more liquid in here. And that is normal when you use frozen veggies in the slow cooker. So I'm just gonna mix that in. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add my cream and cornstarch mixture now, just so that this can thicken up nicely for Josh for dinner. It already smells really good. It definitely has quite a bit more cooking it needs to do, but I kind of want to get that cornstarch in there now. And then the last thing that will go in here after this cooks away for probably another couple hours is Parmesan cheese. And then he will cook up a pound of spaghetti and mix that in here. And we will definitely eat whatever does not get eaten tonight for meal prep. I am gonna sit down and have a piece of this quiche because I am hungry. And then when I'm done eating this, it should be perfect timing to finish up our dough. Let's see if I cook this all the way. Perfect. I try not to overcook quiche because we obviously do not eat the whole thing in one sitting. And so when we reheat it, it'll cook even more. So I would rather be on the soft side than overcooked side. I haven't had quiche in so long. This is so good. Oh man, this is delicious. The caramelized onions, the salty bacon, because the caramelized onions are sweet, so it balances the salty bacon. The homemade pie crust. If you don't make homemade pie crust, try it. It's so good. I forgot how good quiche is. I haven't made quiche in probably 6 months, and it's delicious. I'm so excited to have the rest of that for breakfast and things like that. So now what we're gonna do is finish off this dough so that we can put it in the fridge and it'll be ready for us first thing in the morning. We actually don't have to be to Josh's dad's house till 11, which is amazing. Normally we have to be there at like 8. So I won't have to get up that early, but I do need to get up in time to shape everything and bake it and have it ready and get ready to go before we go. But I don't have to get up crazy early, which is gonna be fantastic, which I normally have to do. Let's see. Okay, so here's the rest of the ingredients. This is where this recipe is a little bit odd when it comes to a yeast recipe. What we're gonna do is add 1 more cup of flour, which there's not very many recipes where you add more flour, and baking powder and baking soda to a yeast recipe, but both of those are called for in this recipe. And for the baking soda, she says to put a scant tablespoon of baking soda, so a little less than, not a tablespoon, a teaspoon. So I've got a half a teaspoon here, so I'm gonna put a little less than a full teaspoon of baking soda. Make sure I'm doing that correctly. Yes. My baking soda is a little clumpy, that's why I just break it up to make sure there's no lumps. And then we're gonna put a heaping teaspoon of baking powder. I don't know if this what makes them so light and fluffy, but I'm gonna do 2 heaping half teaspoons to get us there. And then I just like to mix those in together a little bit. And now I'm gonna get in there with my hands. Yeah. And I'm just gonna mix this in. This is a very tender dough. It smells so good. It's a very sweet dough. I'm gonna roll my sleeve up a little bit more using this towel. You can make this in a mixer if you want to, but I have always just done it like this. And the dough did look a little odd before adding this last cup of flour, and now it just looks like an absolutely beautiful dough. That's all we have to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray this really well so it doesn't dry out. Cover it back up. So now what I'm gonna do is pop this in the fridge, and then we will revisit this tomorrow. I am gonna put this in the coldest part of my fridge because I don't want this to rise that much. So I'm excited that dinner is now prepped. Let me grab the pasta. So I have 1 pound of spaghetti pasta that Josh is going to boil up and make for dinner tonight. I do have carrot sticks in the fridge, so they can have those for dinner along with that. Let me get out the last ingredients. I'm gonna show you, ta-da! I could have loaded a lot of those dishes right into my dishwasher because it's unloaded, but I didn't, so this is what it looks like. There is dishes everywhere, but sometimes you need to prioritize eating lunch, and look, all my drawers are open and not doing the dishes, so that's what I did. So I'm gonna put this here for Josh so that he knows he needs to put all of this in there if he wants all of it in there. And you can see it's already starting to kind of thicken up and just look delicious. It smells incredible. This is such a simple dinner, and it just packs a whole lot of flavor. I think I forgot to show you that I did add salt and pepper to this. Here, you can really see that it's starting to make like a nice sauce. Let me give this a taste test real quick, just to see if it needs any salt or pepper, because I don't think Josh will taste test it. Dripping. Oh my goodness. The peppers and onions with the sausage flavor is fantastic. So good. So now what I'm gonna do is empty my garbage can because it's full and I had already pulled it out and I'm tripping over it. Put a new garbage bag in here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and tackle these dishes. And it's only $1.39, and I've got my gift already wrapped. So once I get these, oh shoot, frosting on my sweater. Once I get all these dishes done, I can relax until I need to leave at 5, which is amazing. The nice thing is I really do like our dishwasher that came with this house. So I can get away with not being like perfect when it comes to rinsing everything off. But that almond was way too much. I'm gonna need butter for tomorrow, so I'm gonna stick out this box is like falling apart and I'm not sure why. We're gonna need that much butter for tomorrow. Oh man, this is a disaster too. The before, and the after. Everything is done, kitchen is clean. There's 2 dishes in the sink, which I'm not gonna worry about right now, but dinner, cinnamon roll, quiche, present wrapped, so many good things. I do need to run the vacuum over my floors once because I spilled some yeast and powdered sugar. I'm gonna take this out to the garbage, and then I'm going to put my feet up and relax and get into the Christmas spirit. I will see you back early tomorrow morning. It is officially Christmas Eve, and it is time to roll out these cinnamon rolls. I had a great time with my friend at dinner the night before. Josh really enjoyed his dinner, and now it is time to have a cup of coffee so we can get this morning started. Josh did start this pot of coffee, so as soon as I walked in the kitchen, it smelled incredible, and I could hit the ground running, which I really appreciated. I am going to start by warming up some butter. This butter had been sitting on the counter overnight, and I don't like my butter to be completely melted when I make cinnamon rolls because it's just messy and it's harder to roll the cinnamon rolls when the butter is just sloshing all around. So I'm going to put the butter in the microwave for about 10 seconds just so that it's super soft and spreadable. And while that is in the microwave, I'm going to get our dough out of the refrigerator. So this dough is cold, and I know that it's going to take quite a bit of time to rise properly. And so I am going to get up early-ish on this day and get this going and allow these cinnamon rolls to prove and baked before we go. I have shaped these cinnamon rolls using this dough before, the night before, and then proof them in the morning and bake them. And I've had a harder time getting them to be cooked all the way in the center, cooking them when the dough is cold. And I think that's my own fault. I don't think I let them warm up enough and proof enough out of the fridge before I put them in the oven. But what I have learned, my preference is to make the dough the day before and then the morning of, roll them out, let them rise, and bake them. So here you can see the consistency of this butter. This is what I like to work with when making cinnamon rolls. And I cut this dough in half, and we're going to make two different kind of cinnamon rolls. We're going to make cinnamon rolls and we're going to make almond rolls. The almond rolls I just made up. I used my recipe for the almond paste from my banquette recipe, and then you'll see what I do to make the cinnamon rolls, because I couldn't find something online that I was super happy with, and that is why I ended up just kind of making up my own almond roll recipe, and I'll let you know how they turned out when we get to that. But for the cinnamon rolls, all I do, I don't measure this part, I just put a nice layer of butter down, and then I put brown sugar, and I try not to put too much, so I'm trying to evenly spread this butter out, or not the butter, I already did the butter, the sugar out, and then if I feel like there's excess cinnamon, or goodness, if I feel like there's excess brown sugar, I do kind of pick that up, and then I sprinkle it with cinnamon. There are, like recipes that you can follow for this. The recipe that the dough comes from Pioneer Woman, it's actually she does like a maple cinnamon roll, and we just like traditional cinnamon rolls and with a cream cheese frosting. And so I don't follow her filling recipe and I don't follow her frosting recipe. I really just follow her dough recipe. And again, this is my favorite dough. Now, I did want to talk to you because I got a question about what my mom does with the Rhodes frozen dough, how she makes her cinnamon rolls. And what she does is she doesn't buy the Rhodes rolls to make cinnamon rolls. She buys the bread, because they have a frozen loaf that you can let rise and turn into like a sandwich bread. So she buys that. She will take them out of the packaging, and because we live in the Pacific Northwest, it's not crazy cold. It's about 40 degrees typically in people's garages. So what she does, her tradition is to take the frozen loaves of bread, she puts them on a cookie sheet, she covers them, and she lets them rise in the garage all day while she preps for the big Christmas Eve dinner. And then what she would do traditionally is after we would have our big Christmas Eve dinner, she would roll out the dough, she would put the butter and the brown sugar, and that was one of my favorite things to do. We would stay up really late doing that. And then she would cut them like I'm doing now, and she would put them covered in the garage and let them rise overnight in the garage, because it wasn't as cold as a refrigerator, but it was cold enough that they would rise really slowly, so that in the morning, as soon as we would get up and we were opening stocking, she would put those cinnamon rolls in the oven so that we could have them for breakfast on Christmas Day. But I just do it a little bit different, and I don't always make homemade cinnamon rolls. I try to when I can, but I've been responsible for making cinnamon rolls when we go to Josh's dad's house for years now at this point, and I think probably like 8 or 9 years, if not longer than that. And I think twice I brought canned cinnamon rolls and I baked those, and no one complained, and it was delicious. So, sometimes it's homemade, usually it's homemade, but it's not always homemade. So now that we have the cinnamon rolls done, we are going to go ahead and make the almond rolls. So we made the almond paste the day before, and then I softened up some butter, and I have about 1 part almond paste to 1 part butter. When I went live with you all doing some breakfast prep, one of you mentioned that you made almond rolls and they were a little dry, and you thought that butter would really help the rolls not turn out dry. So I'm taking that advice, and I am going to spread this almond paste / butter mixture onto the rolls. And this paste is kind of thick. I probably could have softened the butter just a little bit to make it a little bit more spreadable, because my almond paste was cold from the fridge. It had to be refrigerated because it does have eggs in it. And so I probably could have melted the butter a little bit more, but this ended up working out fine. I just had to be careful, and I did little dollops of the filling. And when I was spreading it out, I just had to be careful not to kind of rip the dough, because the dough is pretty tender. And I'm just going to tell you now, these are incredible. The one thing I will do different next time is I will reduce the sugar a little bit. They were pretty sweet because I do put the cream cheese frosting on the top. Most of the recipes that I found for almond rolls did call for a type of cream cheese frosting, and I didn't feel like making two different frostings. So what I would do is probably half the sugar I did, because the dough is also pretty sweet. That with the dough being sweet and the frosting being sweet, the filling didn't need to be as sweet. And I do put a crunchy topping on. You will see in just a bit that I felt that it needed something, so I do put a crunchy topping on the top of these. So once I get the filling nice and spread out evenly, I just roll them up and I cut them. Normally I cut them and I, cut them in half, and then I cut them and I try to be really even. And this time I just decided to cut what looked like an appropriate amount off each end and go from there. And it worked out just fine. I wasn't super exact. I do spray the bottom of these foil pans. That is another thing that I like to do when it comes to bringing cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning, is because I'm bringing these to someone else's house, I gave myself the gift of foil pans so that inevitably they weren't all going to be eaten, and I could just leave them and not even have to think about worrying about washing my dishes or anything like that. They could just be left there and we could move on. And so that's what I did. It was really interesting. The cinnamon rolls with the almond paste held their shape really well. The cinnamon rolls with the cinnamon sugar, they kind of were wanting to fall apart a little bit on me. And I liked that these ones were kind of holding their shape a little bit better. This was kind of a gamble for me. I know that Josh's family loves almond paste and almond flavor because we make that dessert banquette, but I didn't know if they would be excited about almond cinnamon rolls because that's not traditional, and they were such a hit. Almost all of them got eaten. Not everything got eaten, but because we had like a whole breakfast spread, there was a couple casseroles and yogurt and granola. And so the cinnamon rolls are just part of the breakfast. They're not the whole breakfast. And they were delicious. So now that I have the cinnamon rolls cut out, they are in the oven, and they just proofed in the oven with the oven light on because my kitchen was pretty cold on this morning. I wanted them to rise a little bit quicker. I reheated my coffee. I enjoyed a quiet morning by myself because my family was still sleeping. And then once they were properly proofed, I preheated the oven, and I get these in the oven and I bake them until they reach the internal temperature of about 205-ish degrees. That is my new favorite trick to know if dough is done, is to just take its temperature, and then because I definitely have served raw cinnamon rolls, or like the internal of the cinnamon rolls were not cooked all the way, and that's very disappointing. And so it just is great peace of mind to take its temperature and know it is done. So I brought these to my father-in-law's house unfrosted because they were still pretty warm. I didn't want my frosting to melt. So I take them out of the oven. I do end up covering them with some foil. We go over to my father-in-law's house for Christmas morning, and then once we're there right before we eat, I just cut the end of that frosting off and put a little bit of frosting on each cinnamon roll. The amount that I made of frosting was literally the perfect amount. I thought last minute, I'm going to toast up some slivered almonds to top. This is the banquette. It is delicious. I took that out of the freezer the night before, and then I just sliced that up. So that's part of our brunch as well. And then I toasted some almonds, and I only put the toasted almonds on one of the pans of almond rolls because I know not everyone likes the crunch of nuts. And there it is. It wouldn't be Christmas morning without cinnamon rolls, whether they're homemade or store-bought. We love to have some cinnamon rolls on Christmas. I want to thank you for being here, friend. I greatly appreciate every single one of you. I hope you had a wonderful and Merry Christmas. I'm excited for what the new year has in store. And if you want to watch more videos, I'll pop some videos here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. This is what everything looks like packaged up, and we're heading over to his house.